A 55-year-old man who made an extraordinary wish before he died, that his remains be used by me to educate people about human anatomy. I met him several times. He was passionate about science and about the enlightenment of lay people. Tonight, I will dissect him and unravel the mysteries beneath his skin.
Lesson 1. Movement.
Wiggling your toes. It seems an almost inconsequential action, yet the systems which underlie it are amazingly complex. In this series, we'll be revealing the systems of the human body so that you can see them for yourselves. And in this program, we'll be beginning with movement. We'll be taking you to the core of the human body, to the central controllers of the brain and the spinal cord, and how they're connected to our movement machines, the muscles, and how the muscles transfer their energy to the system of levers, which is our skeleton. But to get there, we first have to peel away the part of human anatomy that's most familiar.
Dissection has been done since centuries. This picture originates from 1747, and the approach is always the same. At first, we have to take off the skin to look at the muscles. And to dissect those, I go over here to our specimen, which is an upright position, because this is the position we move our muscles. For reason of anonymity, I have covered the face. We want to start from the back, therefore I want to turn around. Marius, could you be of help? Thank you very much. Done. To take the skin away takes a while, therefore we have already started, so we are faster. And I start here at the side, and I want to take off the skin in one large piece. So this is a fresh specimen. We have not fixed it. In this way, the muscles are more flexible. It's easier to show you later on their function.
If you think of the skin as an organ, the skin is actually our largest continuous organ. I think you'll be surprised at just quite how big it is when it's actually been fully removed. The skin forms our interface with the external world. It has a number of functions. It conveys sensory information from the outside world to our nervous system. It's responsible for heat regulation because the sweat glands are located in our skin. The skin also makes specialized structures such as hair and nails. And although it is a continuous organ, it does have specialized areas. For example, only our scalp tends to make hair and profusion. Only the skin near the tips of our fingers and our toes makes nails. Although the skin itself, when it's removed in this way, is a very large organ, a lot of the material that you see is actually composed of tough connective tissue and subcutaneous fat, which also helps to keep us warm. But the actual active portion of the skin is a small growing layer just between the fat and connective tissue and the surface, which is what rubs off when we're in the bath. This layer is only a single cell thick, probably about 1/10 of a millimetre thick, and thinner than a piece of tissue paper, and as easy to tear, or probably easier to tear. But without that growing layer, we wouldn't actually have a skin to protect us.
I want to save the ear and the face, and okay. Okay. So the skin is loosened, and I actually take it now with the scissors off the body. Would you help me a little bit? The hand, hold it please.
And the colour of the subcutaneous fat that you see is exactly the same as a surgeon sees when he's doing an operation.
So actually the skin, the largest organ, depending on the amount of subcutaneous tissue, between 3 and 30 kilogram heavy. We want to put it neatly, you know. This was very important that specimen looks nice. This now is the skin in its entirety. Here, the skin from the head, the right and the left extremity, as here, the leg.
And in fact, although this may seem, and indeed is, a very strange sight, it has a long history in art. One of the most famous examples of the skin being painted in this state can be found on the roof of the Sistine Chapel, where Michelangelo has painted a portrait of himself as the flayed skin of St. Bartholomew.
To give you an overview about the muscles, they are all covered by loose connective tissue, the muscle sheath, and inside the muscle contracts. Over the trunk, there are the muscles in a flat shape. They move the shoulder blade, they move the rib cage, they move the hips, but as for the extremities, the muscles always have a rather round shape, and they usually end in tendons, in dense connective tissue, like here in the lower arm or like here in the biceps.
Well, the logic of dissection means that we must start our study of movement from the outside with the muscles. So let's first have a look at some muscles in action. And over here we have Juliet, our resident anatomical artist, who's just drawing some muscles on our model Dennis's arm here, which we'll come to in a moment. But first let me show you a muscle in action. And if I could just ask you to hold that for me. I'll stop it with a ruler. And Dennis here has a particularly fine biceps that we can do a useful demonstration of muscle action on. If you just hold your arm there, and I'm just going to extend this ruler so that we can all see roughly, here we are, how long the muscle is. And if I put the end of the ruler near the one there, at the edge of Dennis's biceps, if you now tense your biceps, Dennis, and you can see that bulge, it shortened really quite considerably. And just relax again. Okay, just do that one more time. So there it is. And the muscle has actually shortened about half of its length. Thanks. Well, it used to be thought that muscles were some type of spring and that they pinged together when they shortened. Perhaps the proteins coiled up. But in fact, the modern understanding of muscle was only established in about the 1950s, when it was found out using electron microscopy, very high magnification microscopy, that muscles really are constructed like little machines. They're made out of interlacing filaments, which overlap in this way. And when the muscle is switched on, actually by an arriving nerve impulse, this causes the filaments to interact in such a way that they slide past one another. And when the muscle is switched off, they then relax again. So muscles really are constructed like a small machine which moves past and back and past and back in shortening and lengthening. Well, if we now have a look at the muscles that Juliet's drawn on Dennis's forearm here, we've mentioned the biceps in the top of the arm. Muscles can, of course, only contract, which means that for every group of muscles, there has to be a group of muscles on the other side of the bone to pull in the other direction. These muscles here, this package of muscles, is the group which extends the wrist. It bends the wrist back in this direction. If you just contract those muscles there for us, Dennis, you can see the muscle groups here and the tendons running down into Dennis's wrist. And we're now going to have a look at these groups of muscles in our dissection specimen.
To show you this on the specimen now, we have to turn it around. And Okay, here are the biceps, which we just demonstrated in the live model. And here you see the lower arm. And this is a flexion and this is extension. And so it's actually the muscles on the lower arm which move the hands. It's like a puppet show. Otherwise, there would be too much muscles on the hand. All the small tendons going here, only a few muscles at the hand itself. So I want to demonstrate this by taking off the flexor muscles of the hand. For that, I have to cut off the flexor muscles of the lower arm, which originate here from the medial part of the lower arm. So I just do that. So when I pull here, a moment, give me the knife again. So, yeah. And I need to do this also to the periphery. And you will see in a moment that indeed the muscles go forward. It takes a moment. There's actually a large band of connective tissue to avoid that normally the tendons move out. And I have to open this canal. And then I'm able to take the muscles out.
All of our muscles and tendons are constructed around our skeleton. Our skeleton is the central strut and force-transmitting tissue of the body composed of bone. And the area that we're looking at on the dissection specimen at the moment is the tendons running into the hand from the bulk of the forearm muscle, mass of muscles here. The tendons themselves actually form a firm join with the bone, which transmits the force from the muscle to the bone, causing movement of the bone at joints.
What I open here is a so-called tendinous sheath. It's actually the bed where the tendons move to and fro.
That's right. One of the important things about muscles and tendons is that throughout our lives, they have to be able to move and slide over one another and not get stuck to either themselves or other structures. So muscles are all contained within their own bags, and the tendons also are contained within their own sheaths. Sometimes, indeed, you get inflammation of the tendon sheaths called tendinitis, and that can actually cause a painful sensation in the area affected by it.
So as you see, the tendons actually take a quite complicated pathway here. And when I now pull the muscle of the lower arm, the tendons actually are tight and the hand is moving up. And you can imagine how much fine movement must be exerted by the nervous system now, for example, when playing the violin.
That's a very striking demonstration of the way we really are constructed according to mechanical principles. And there's actually a way that you can demonstrate this as well for yourselves. If you hold your middle finger in the position that I'm showing here, you'll find that you can't actually move the bottom part of your finger. That's because you've actually lengthened the tendon across this joint here, and the muscle now has no pull. So you find that that will be immobile, whereas obviously when you straighten your fingers, the fingers can move again.
The extensor muscles of the hand originate out here, mainly from the back of the lower arm. All the tendons are again together with the muscles in sheets of very soft